Hey, good afternoon. Welcome on in to another episode of Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. I'm Joe Roderick. He's Mike Claiborne, and Claibs, we're going to start off today with a very special guest, as we just mentioned his name. He is, as we wait for him to get all settled in and ready to go in the waiting room. We will be joined by Ryan Kelly before we get into everything going on in the world of sports today. But as we wait for Ryan, how's everything in your world?
Everything's good. A lot of things going on. We got a bunch of sports going on at the same time, and weather looks like it's going to get better here fairly soon. So I'm excited about what's in front of us.
Absolutely. The Cardinals out in LA and they're one of their few West Coast road trips of the year, and one that you don't have to go on. And I think that you have some information, if not today, but coming soon, as far as the broadcasts go, or maybe some things that you've heard about when you guys might get back on the road.
Well, I kind of think from what we hear, maybe July. You know, there's some teams that are traveling. The White Sox are traveling now. And I think you'll see some other teams. And I think it also depends on where they're traveling to, on whether those facilities can accommodate visiting broadcasts. I mean, a lot of ballparks had to create social distance and space and use some of the booths for some other reasons. So it just really depends on what the access will be for certain facilities. But I feel better about it now than I did, let's say, 3 months ago.
And I know last night I was watching as I was watching the game, the Justin Williams home run on the TV side of things. Edmonds and Danny Mac could not tell that ball was where it was, fair, foul. What was it like in the radio booth with the camera angle you guys had?
The same. We see the same thing they do, and you're at the mercy of a director, producer, who may have a different viewpoint on switching cameras and things of that nature. So it's been a challenge, but this whole thing has been an ordeal with regard to how these games are covered. We had a game recently. It was a YouTube game that was not synced as far as the video and the audio being synced. And it was it was a cluster. And I credit John Rooney and Ricky Horton for being able to deal with it. I mean, the guy missed a pickoff play. I mean, there were so many things that are wrong with this. And hopefully we're going to start to see we get near the end of it because, it was made up at the last minute. I mean, it was something we all had to deal with. It was just another inconvenience. And but I think when it's all said and done, being there certainly serves a better purpose for fans being able to really see what's going on compared to assuming which is not a good thing all the time.
As you mentioned, camera angles, I think he's got it all set up and ready to go as we welcome on in the home loan expert.
There he is.
He is Ryan Kelly. What's going on?
Sorry about all that, boys. I got to tell you, my Mac wasn't working properly, but the link works perfect on my phone. So I just had to reset everything up and be prepared for you. Thanks for letting me jump on with you both. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're glad to have you. First of all, you look like you're in pretty good health since the decline. Tell me about how things went, and more importantly, tell me how you felt physically and mentally when you were done.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Mike, of course, for all your support on our 7th annual Climb for the Kids. And a huge thank you to all the viewers, the listeners out there that have gotten involved over the years, followed our climbs, and of course, made donations to the foundation. Our 7th annual Climb for the Kids did not disappoint. It was one that, for its own reasons, will go down in history as one of our favorites. We took a team of 10 this year out to Alaska, and we flew onto a glacier, landed on the plane on a glacier, got our bags tossed out of the plane. The plane took off and left us there for what was supposed to be 6 nights. We got some pretty bad weather towards the end and had to bunker down. So we got a bonus day or two at the end of sitting in our tents and shoveling around the tents and stomping the runways in hopes that the planes could come back and get us. So again, it did not disappoint. This year's climb was also unique in the fact that we did not have one particular mountain or a big objective in mind. In years past, we've climbed Rainier or Cotopaxi or the Grand Teton, and we've had these big objectives, where this year it was, let's get out on Denali's Glacier and let's climb some beautiful mountains while we're there and just kind of see how the weather plays out. And we did. We've raised over $63,000, I think is a pretty accurate number right now. We broke that 63,000 late last night, so I'm sure we're still going up. And we're still looking for donations now. We're going to continue to raise money for the Keep Climbing Foundation until Friday of this week. At that time, we will stop it. You can learn more. You can make a donation by visiting keepclimbingfoundation.org. The beauty of all of this is coming now. We've trained, we selected what we're doing, we've trained, we went out there, we put ourselves out there, we did this incredible climbs. I mean, just when the movie comes out, you're going to see some pretty cool stuff. We've done all that work and we're raising the money. But the beauty now is finding organizations that we've partnered up to. How can we help them with that money? How can we disperse the funds to great organizations like the Isaac Bruce Foundation and SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Hospital right on Grand and Friends of Kids with Cancer? So what can we do to make the biggest impact now with the money we've raised? And that's awesome. You know, that's where we find out, okay, the hospital needs some Xbox carts for kids that are battling, you know, going through therapy and treatment and radiation and chemo, and they need Xbox carts. Great, we'll buy 20 of them. What else can we do? Football programs, scholarship programs to the Bruce Foundation that will help, you know. So now we've completed our part, fundraising for a few more days, and then really go out and make an impact in the community. And that's what it's all about.
So you got a little bonus time on the glacier. Physically, how do you feel?
I feel, honestly, I won't BS you. It took a couple days to really get back in my routine. This was a hard one. And some of that can be chalked off. You don't see night. It doesn't get dark,
Yeah.
Alaska, right? So this time of year, I should say. So we never saw dark. The sun kind of sets around 11 o'clock, but it never really goes all the way down because you're so high up on the globe that it just starts to come right back up. And I think physically and mentally, that's one big challenge, you know, not seeing dark for 11 days. Physically, I'm okay. I stay in great shape. I run. This morning I ran, hence me trying to get my hair fixed today because I went to the office and I was a sweaty mess when I got here a few hours ago. And but physically, I'm okay. It was just readjusting back to reality on some level, you know, coming back and not using the bathroom and, you know, outside, you know, going into a bathroom and having running water and having a bed and not having to sleep in a cocoon of a bag with all your gear on. And one night I decided to sleep with my boots on because it's so cold, you know, and you're just sleeping that way. It's just physically, it's a little bit coming out of Alaska to adjust to, but overall I'm fine and nobody got injured. Everybody's okay. Few panic attacks on some of the summits. You know, maybe I took the team up some stuff we probably shouldn't have gone up, but overall, we're all home and we're great. And it's the kids that we climb for. And I won't say that I have anything wrong with me. I'm doing just fine, just adjusting back into my element.
Good
You've
for
done
you.
7 of these now. What's next on the bucket list? What's on the next few years look like?
Love that. We've spent a lot of time the last 6-7 months as a company finding a way to include more inclusion and within our company. And one thing that I've heard is I want to climb a mountain, but I can't go away for that period of time, or I don't have the skills to do that. So what we're going to do now is the Climb for the Kids will be a quarterly initiative at the Home Loan Expert. One quarter we'll do something big. So we're talking about maybe going to Japan or to Africa next year and doing our big Climb for the Kids. Let's use Africa as an example. Go out for a week, build on some schools, build some, you know, hospitals, things like that for a week long, and then go climb Kilimanjaro for another week. So it's a 2-week trip to Africa. Now, the smaller ones could be 5 days on the Appalachian Trail, you know, knocking out 100 miles where everybody can train for something. Everybody can do something like that. So the Climb for the Kids, Home Loan Expert Climb for the Kids, will become a quarterly event, 3 smaller objectives, 1 large objective with a lot of fundraising involved. But also now the Climb for the Kids is no longer an initiative underneath the mortgage company. We've shifted over to the foundation. So the foundation is working on getting other climbing teams around the world to do their Climb for the Kids and to raise dollars and awareness. So you'll see the Climb for the Kids happen internally 4 times a year with smaller objectives, so everybody be included. And then outside of our company, you'll see other organizations doing their own climb for the kids. If there is a company or somebody listening right now that says, hey, I'd like to take everybody to my car dealership on a climb, or whatever they're doing, reach out to me, because we're very big now into sharing the Climb for the Kids initiative with every company we can to raise big dollars for the kids.
Hey, Ryan, I'd be remiss to ask you, are you still in awe of the real estate market and just how many people are trying to buy a house and making sure they have everything put in order paperwork-wise?
The Wild West out there, and I'm still in shock by it. You really have to have a good realtor right now, and you really have to have a good mortgage lender. There are homes in every market that we're in 18 states, and every state's feeling it. These homes aren't even getting on the market, and they're selling. A realtor comes back from the listing agreement and says, I have a listing in Seven Pines, in the neighborhood of Seven Pines, and there's 20 agents sitting right next to that, him or her, that are like, I have a buyer right now. So things are happening so fast. You have to be prepared. You have to have a good agent. You need to be pre-approved day one. So if you've been thinking about buying a home this year, just start talking to us. Like, let's get through any credit struggles. Let's educate. Let's get you ready so that when that perfect house does come, you have a strong mortgage lender, you're prepared, and you just get right through that process. So a lot of cash offers out there too. You have to fight and negotiate that. Not all of us have the money sitting around in cash, myself included. Like, that's just not your average home buyer with cash in their hand. So you're competing with that. You're competing with a lot of other things. Some people have a house to sell, some don't. There's just so much out there. So just get pre-approved. Start those conversations early. Work with a good agent, and then trust the system, and trust your agent to navigate you through this chaotic time right now where there just is no inventory. I mean, I could be fancy and tell you that there's 0.3 months of inventory in this market and 0.6, but really just there's no inventory. If a home is sitting on the market, there's something wrong with it at this point. Price is usually the big one, or because we're even getting past pricing issues, location. Maybe it's sitting right on the side of the inner belt or something and nobody wants to live there. I don't know, but homes that are, good homes are selling day one or even before they get to the market. So be prepared and work with a good team.
All right. Hey, man, listen, this has been a blast. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
On the climb. You're going to get a nice check from claibsonline.com here the next day or so, because we want to be part of that. We've already volunteered Joe for the next adventure because he's physically ready to go. And we'll look forward to having some more fun with this down the road. But of course, we appreciate what you mean to us, and certainly to you, what you mean to all your customers in St. Louis and in the other 18 states that you're in.
I really appreciate that. And thank you again to both of you, to everybody behind the scenes. They're working on the show every day. Thank you to all the listeners, the viewers, for all the donations and the support. We're going to keep climbing for the kids. And that's where I'll leave it. Thanks again, everybody. Keep climbing. And the organization is keepclimbingfoundation.org. Thanks.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you. That's Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert.
We have that logo up, don't we?
With the Keep Climbing logo?
Yeah.
I got it somewhere in here as I play the role of director, producer, whatever it is. Yeah. There you go. You could donate right there and help Ryan out. That's awesome. The quarterly initiative that they're doing, and it's great to have them on board and be part of what they are doing here with what we have going on at claibsonline.com. Hey, let's take a short break, and when we do come back, we'll get into more Cardinal talk along with everything else. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on what happened at the French Open yesterday with Naomi Osaka. So we'll talk about that coming up next too, right after this.
St. Louis Acura has the best inventory in the Midwest, like the all-new 2022 Acura MDX. It earned the highest safety award from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. Get 1.9% financing for up to 60 months and $1,000 in loyalty conquest offers. Or get 0% financing on the redesigned 2021 TLX for up to 36 months and $2,500 in loyalty conquest offers. St. Louis Acura, becoming better than ever for you.
Back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. Claibs, before we get into stuff that happened with the game and this most recent road trip, any update that you have heard on Jack Flaherty and his injury?
I know he was going to have some imaging done today, maybe as we speak. But other than that, we probably won't know anything until later this afternoon. And let's just keep our fingers crossed. This isn't something that's going to be around for a while, because to be quite honest with you, we're pretty thin right now in the pitching department. And the Cardinals may have to look outside.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who's out there. Honestly, it's anybody that would be out there, there's a reason for them being out there, and it's not a good reason for them being out there. So you might have to start looking elsewhere. I know, Matthew Libator is still a few years away, but he's currently pitching down in Florida, getting ready to go to the Olympics. So yeah, he's on that roster right now and pitched just the other day for Team USA.
Again, I've said this to you before. I don't think help is within the organization, offensively and pitching wise, because there's just too much of a gap between guys that are developed compared to guys who are developing. And they're going to have to look outside the organization. Now, I think it's even more important to find someone who can give you length, because the bullpen's chewed up, and you're going to probably have to make an adjustment there as well. So a lot of things on plate for Cardinal brass from this point on in order to keep this thing close.
As far as name recognition out there right now, the Giants just released Scott Kazmir, who somehow popped back up into a major league team recently, but was very short-lived. And now he's already back on the outside looking in. So that's what I'm saying. Name recognition. That's what's out there. That's what you're looking at when you say you're going to have to go outside of the organization. Otherwise, you're talking about basically trading away some, single A prospect just for a contract, just for a team that wants to get rid of a guy. And I don't know what's out there as far as that goes either.
No, I think you're right. I think that there's some teams that unfortunately are in our division you like maybe do some business with. I'd take a crack at the start over in Cincinnati. He's having a terrible year, but I think the kid can pitch, Iglesias. And there's some other players out there that I like. But I think that, the price might be a little steep. You also might want to look at a team that's got a contract they'd like to move because they've got somebody else to insert for this year or next year. And here's the thing that I think is important for the Cardinals to take into account. You better start thinking about guys that are going to be able to pitch next year as well, because you don't know what you're going to do with Wainwright. You don't know what you're going to do with Martinez. You don't know what you're going to do with KK. You got to throw out 3 or 4 guys that are up in the air with regard to what their future is going to look like. Oviedo, not ready. Libator, not ready. So the guys internally are going to need a little bit more time. So whoever you bring in, you need to kind of pencil them in to be part of your rotation for next year as well. And Michaelis is another guy you don't know about.
No, he just got put on the 60-day DL after making his first start in a year and a half. So that's never good. That's not something you're just bouncing back for, and he's going to be back to 2019 form when he comes back in those 60 days. It's a real big issue right now, and it's one that the name that's fun to throw out there is Max Scherzer. That's the pipe dream to bring Max Scherzer back to St. Louis, where he grew up playing. But the amount that it's going to take to get him. And at what point do the Nationals, and that's what I'm saying, at what point do the Nationals even want to give up a guy like that in the season? It's not a realistic dream right now.
Well, maybe it isn't today,
right?
But I think what we have to do is look at the standings, and if they feel like they're going to be out of it, you have to remember something. I think you can get him for less than you think because of this reason. A, he's on the short end of a deal. B, they need to move him because they got to pay Josh Bell, they've got to pay Trey Turner, and they got to pay Soto. All right. So they're going to have to let one of these salaries move on. And it seems like it would be him. When you do it, I don't know. But going back to my original point, I don't know if you have to give up the farm to get a guy who's on the back end of his career and that you would deem a rental, and they would be looking at a salary relief. So maybe there's some mid-level prospects that are there that maybe they'd have an interest in.
Don't give up an outfielder, because we've seen twice now. We've seen twice now what happens when the Cardinals part ways with outfielders. You go down and look in Tampa, and you go look at Texas. And what's happening there? And it's what is that, man? We haven't talked about that at all. With what Garcia's doing with the Rangers and Arozarena has done with the Rays, who missed on that? Who in the Cardinals organization missed, or is it just a matter of those guys changed scenery and blossomed?
Don't know who you could pin this on as far as missing. You may look at the situation where maybe there was more playing time available to them. Now, if you want to say they didn't get a long enough look, yeah, you could probably say that. But I don't know if the pressure is on Garcia in Texas as it would have been in St. Louis. The Arozarena, they just missed, plain and simple. I mean, he's continuing to play well. So, those things happen. Every organization has a guy that slips through. But with those two, and they signed them at the same time out of Cuba, I just didn't feel like they gave them enough time to develop compared to waiting on other guys and pushing other guys down the road that we found out maybe weren't as effective as we thought they were going to be.
And with the Arozarena too, I feel like we haven't seen that entire deal play out yet. We already mentioned Liberatore. He's on Team USA. It's one of those where we might not know for another 5 years or so if that was a good move.
Probably less than that, but your point is a valid one with regard to giving it time, because that we think Liberatore can be a very good pitcher, but it's going to take time, and who's to say that they won't make adjustments on the Arozarena? So those things happen. I kind of put them in the rearview mirror because I think you have to look forward to what you have in front of you, because there's nothing you can do about a Arozarena now. He's gone on to elsewhere, and he's doing a good job, and those things happen.
By the way, last thing on that Team USA, have you seen the roster for that?
I saw
team? Is that not that is the biggest? I don't even know, like a potpourri of players, young and
collection. Old. Yeah, and I guess my question is, what do you expect? Because all the good players around the world are playing for their respective teams.
Yeah,
so it's not like you're going to have a bunch of good players, a bunch of all-stars playing on this. That's why I think the World Baseball thing is a better showcase for the best players in the world to play. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't put much stock in it. It's a nice thing to have, considering that you weren't in the Olympics, the last time around, because you didn't make the team. So you didn't make the Olympics. So I know they take it serious, but it's not something that, if I have a chance to watch the USA play Japan or Belgium or whatever, the Netherlands, probably going to watch Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh and the Cubs. If I had to watch a game, it's not something that really wets my whistle, only because of the fact that we know the best players are playing elsewhere right now.
Yeah. By the way, the Cubs just took over the Cardinals for first place yesterday. They're up a half game now on St. Louis. The first time in the entire month of May that the Cardinals were not in first place in the NL Central happened on the very last day of May. So the Cardinals fall to that. Still have 2 games left against the Dodgers before coming back and facing the Reds this weekend, and the Indians next week, and then they go up to Wrigley for the first time this year. So by the time that rolls around, you imagine the 2 teams will be close. But the Cardinals need to figure out this bullpen. And you're starting to see the wear and tear on Genesis Cabrera. You saw that last night. I have just been fascinated with the stat that's out there now, and we saw it add to it last night, that the team has walked 15 batters with the bases loaded this year. 15 batters with the bases loaded. That's, first off, in the first 2 months of the season, that seems like an awful lot of times to have the bases loaded to begin with. And then to walk in 15 runs, and I think I saw Derek Gould tweet out that there's been, 14 hits with the bases loaded. The bullpen just keeps putting guys on time and time again for free, for the most part, with walks. And then you saw last night with Chris Taylor hitting the bases clearing double after a very good at bat against Cabrera, just wearing him down, and then finally finding that pitch. I don't know what the answer is to this bullpen, and you've mentioned it, already once with the pitching staff, that there's no answers. I don't know what to do.
I don't think anybody does right now. And the team record for most walks in that situation is 17. We're at 15, and we're not even a flag day. And I think here's the other stat and I don't have it in front of me with regard to the actual, but the feel is the walks, even when the bases aren't loaded, eventually come around to score. Mm-hmm. And I believe Mike Schilt told me every walk, it's like 0.75% of those guys, basically they end up at third base before it's all said and done, if not score. And that's been the problem with the team. I mean, the Cardinals pitching hasn't been bad as far as they don't have big innings, as far as a bunch of doubles and a bunch of home runs. But, man, the walks has just created such a firestorm of concern that they've got to figure it out. And I don't know how you fix it. I don't think they know how either. I mean, what do? You try and say, well, throw more strikes. Oh, okay. All right. What else you got? So it's something that Mike Schilt and I talked about this the other day. Good bullpen pitching is contagious. Bad bullpen pitching is also contagious. And once it starts to ooze out, man, you just can't get out of the way of it. And we're seeing it now. And, it's amazing. Sometimes it just stops, but it really stops when you have a starter that goes out and starts dealing. You got to have a guy, like tonight, John Gant's got to give you at least 7 innings. I know he doesn't get to 7, but you know what? Maybe it's time for a change as far as how things are done, but they need somebody to give this bullpen a chance. And right now they're not.
It's when you look at John Gant's stats, to have a whip of over 1.5 and to have an ERA under 2, it doesn't make sense. And at some point that's going to catch up to him. Yeah. At some point, one of those numbers are going to change, because the way that those numbers are right now, those two aren't going to stay the same. You can't allow 3 runners every 2 innings and only give up less than 2 runs every 9. Though that will not happen the entire season. Either he cuts down on the walks and stops putting runners on base, or a team's going to light him up for 8-9 runs in 2 innings, and then he's going to be done. One or the other has to happen, right?
Yeah, and the thing with him, if the floodgates open, has a big inning of giving up a couple 3 runs, then he's done, because he would have expended his pitch count to a level where he wouldn't be effective, and I think that becomes more mental at that point. So they got their hands full this week. I mean, and it just so happens that you're playing the Dodgers too. And let's remind everybody, Cincinnati's coming to town. And while I know Cincinnati struggled a little bit as far as swinging the bat, they have the capability of creating some real problems for you if you don't pay attention to them and get them out early.
I saw the numbers. What was it yesterday or a few days ago? They were showing numbers of I think it was 30 RBIs and over 300 batting average in the National League, and Yachty's on there. And the Reds have 2 guys on there. You look at the number, I think it's Suarez and Castellanos, and the numbers that they're putting up are not indicative of what that team record is. To have the 2 guys like that swinging the bat in the lineup and just not having the record to show. But you talked about their pitching earlier. Their pitching just hasn't been there for them this year, which is one of the reasons why they made the playoffs last year, was they had good pitching.
Yeah, and which was one of the reasons why I was concerned about them this year, especially when they moved a couple of guys in the offseason. So all I can say is stay tuned. These things happen, and this is what I talk about when I talk about Flag Day, because this is a prime example of hot streaks and cold streaks, injuries, the weather changes, you have pleasant surprises, you have disappointments, you have things you never saw coming. And if you add all those things I just mentioned up, that kind of encompasses what the Cardinals season has been, and we're not even to Flag Day yet.
Flag Day will be a big day for the Cardinals this year, as they will go to 100% capacity on Flag Day. The first time they will have 100% capacity at Busch Stadium since the end of the 2019 season. That also is a Monday, so Claibs, I imagine we should be somewhere for that. We should have some big thing planned for Flag Day that 2 weeks from I guess from yesterday.
Well, we're checking on the Clydesdale availability, so maybe we can get one of them to come out.
You have that. I mean, I think you got the Clydesdales that are going to do a lap around Busch Stadium. That on the game.
I think what we ought to do is take a lap around Munganast, the dealership, in one of the convertibles and wave at everybody.
We might be at Munganast Alton Toyota next week. I was texting with Jamie earlier. I think we might be there next Monday.
We'll go out there next week too if we need
in Alton.
to.
So we'll do whatever Jamie wants us to do. Hey, so I wanted to get to this. Is more of a serious topic than just bullshitting about the Cardinals and their first 2 months of the season. Yesterday we saw Naomi Osaka, one of the best women's tennis players in the world, drop out of the French Open, announced that she was withdrawing from the French Open. This comes after a day after the French Open tried to fine her for not doing her press conference, for not answering questions at a press conference. And then they announced they were going to fine her. So then she said, you know what, I'm just done. I'm going to walk away from this, citing mental health issues and something that she has talked about dealing with in the past with her mental health. And I think for the most part, it has been she's been applauded for knowing to step away and knowing what's best for her. But you still have some critics that are just, I mean, they're showing how much of an idiot they are when they say anything about her.
Well, she had another option. And I support her decision, by the way. She could have sat there and said, yes, no, I don't know. You go through that round a few times and everybody rolls their eyes and says, you're making a mockery out of this. And you know what I would say? Yeah, the mockery is the fact that somebody insists I come talk to you when I don't want to, and I've explained to you why. This is a bad situation that the Tennis Federation could have handled differently. They wanted to show her who was boss, and she showed them she didn't care. Mental health is an issue that we talk more and more about in this country that has a lot of issues that come with it. And this is a person who, if you remember, when she first broke on the scene, she was 18. A lot of things started to unfold for her in her life at that time. And some kids and their kids didn't handle it well, or didn't know how to handle it well, or didn't get enough advice on how to handle it well. And, it was kind of trying to drink water through a fire hose for her. And I think maybe she was overwhelmed. And then when she lost a match and people was like, well, what was wrong with you? And maybe she didn't have an answer because she hasn't lost that much. And I think the expectations on a professional level are far greater than when you're on the junior circuit. So and you can only get away with this in individual sports. Could you imagine if somebody in the NFL said, you going to talk? Or you go talk to Steve Carlton or go talk to George Hendrick. We've seen players in Major League Baseball say, I'm not talking. So it's only in those sort of sports. And I really wish that the players I don't know if they have a union much like we see in the team sports in this country, but there's got to be an advocate group to speak on behalf of these athletes in what they're able to do and not able to do. It would be different if she had a negative or toxic relationship with members of the media. That wasn't the case. She just wasn't comfortable talking about it. So we'll see what happens next. I think everybody needs to take a step back and be better listeners in what's going on here, because you're going to have this happen again. It's just a matter of time before it happens again.
The president of the FFT, and apologies, I'm not sure what FFT stands for. I would imagine French and tennis are two of those.
Federation of French Tennis.
There you go. You got it. Giles Moreton. He made a statement in French about Naomi Osaka's withdrawal, then repeated it in English, and then he left without taking questions. So he held a press conference in which he refused to take questions, talking about Naomi Osaka not taking questions. So,
well, again, everybody should have stepped back from this. This is poorly handled in every sense of the word. And how they fix it from here, because Wimbledon is coming up, the Open's coming up in September. So they've got two other major Grand Slam events that they're going to have to figure out how to deal with this. And you may see some other players go in that direction. And this is another reason why when you look at these individual sports, why these kids stop playing at 26 or 27 years old, because they get burnt out. And this is one of the elements that comes with it, the pressure and the demands of an individual sport from people who are looking to tear you down more than be objective. And I think that also comes into play.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. We have NBA and NHL talk coming up next.
An important part of being safe in the event of severe weather is being prepared. At Ameren, Illinois, we're prepared too. Prepared to restore power quickly and safely, and to inform you of local outages and updates on restoration times, with text alerts sent right to your phone. Sign up for outage notifications today. And check one more thing off your list at amerenillinois.com/alerts.
It's Lunch with Claibs and Joe. I'm Joe Roderick. He's Mike Claiborne. NBA, NHL playoffs going on now at the as we are entering into the month of June here in baseball. First rounds are done for the NHL. First round, I think, completely over with now in the NHL, as we're starting to get to the end of almost all of the NBA first round series. So let's start with the NHL. I think one of the things we saw this past weekend is maybe the Blues weren't as bad as what we thought they were in their first round. Maybe the Avalanche are just that damn good.
No, the Blues are bad. And I wouldn't take anything into the first game against Vegas. You have to remember, they just came off a big, tough series themselves. I think you'll see a better version of them the next time out. They'll be a player short. But no, Blues are bad. Colorado's good.
7-1, though.
Yeah, but that game had gotten out of hand. There were so many things going on in that game. It got out of hand early, and Colorado just kept trying to pour it on. And Vegas, I think, probably didn't find their second win more than anything else. And I expect a better effort out of them before it's over with.
You have all of the you're a few games into a few of the second rounds. The only one that hasn't started yet in the second round of the NHL is the Canadian series, which is down to Montreal and Winnipeg up there. And it just seems like it's a different world, as all of Canada just played their own hockey all year, and at some point they got to come down into the States to play another round. You look at that, the way that's been handled. The Raptors not playing in Toronto the whole year. The Blue Jays just moved from Florida back up to Buffalo now for the summer, and I don't think they've announced if they're going back to Toronto at all this year. I think the upgrades that they made in Buffalo for the Blue Jays I think they're set here for the rest of the year too. I don't think there's any going back for that. But you're 2 games into the Bruins series already in the NHL. How close are you following the NHL playoffs?
I follow it. I still follow it. I'm a hockey fan. Okay. So I don't care the difference here in St. Louis, we have a lot of Blues fans, not as many hockey fans, and the TV ratings will indicate that. Watch the basketball numbers and watch what they do up against the NHL. Now, granted, we've got a team in St. Louis that's no longer playing. We don't have a team in St. Louis that's playing basketball, and I guarantee you their numbers will be better when this is all said and done. Never fails.
Yeah, I you know what? I'll admit I'm the same way. I'm following the NBA a lot closer than I am anything that's going on in the NHL right now.
But I follow the NHL. I think that Boston New York Islander series is going to be rough and tumble, man. That Islander bunch, man, they love playing the body. They've got some decent goal scoring, and they got a pretty good coach in Barry Trotz behind the bench. So that will be a very telling situation for Boston, who is probably a little fragile right now and how things have unfolded for them for the last couple of years. The other series, Montreal, that's going to be a fun series too. Goaltending will be the difference. Carey Price really played well, and everybody knows Montreal is only going to go as far as Carey Price. But Winnipeg's got some guys that can score, they can skate. They're well coached. Paul Maurice has been around. I think Paul Maurice might be the senior guy right now in the National Hockey League as far as coaching is concerned. But it's going to be a good series. It's going to be a real good series.
As far as the NBA goes, only one of those series is completely over with. The Bucks swept the Heat 4-0 there. All the other ones either are all at Game 5 right now. I think the biggest thing has been the injuries so far in the NBA playoffs, and you've seen a lot of big time names go down already. Anthony Davis, not sure if he's going to play.
He's always hurt though.
Right, but you thought that you'd get him back for the postseason. He'd be able to go the whole postseason. I know he did, and now he's hurt again, injured. And now he might not be playing in Game 5.
Let me ask you this, and I think this applies to hockey as well. Do you think the condensed schedule has caught up to these teams and these players?
I
think there's a lot of guys going down.
Right, but I think it's just the big name. I think it's just the name of the guys going down. I think that's just why we're paying more attention to it. I think there's injuries every year. I just think now you're seeing bigger names going down, so it makes it more newsworthy.
Well, but is it newsworthy because the bigger names play a lot of minutes?
Yeah, because they're the stars. I mean, Anthony Davis, him going down is a big deal because he's Anthony Davis.
Yeah, so that's my point. I think that the condensed schedule has caught up to a lot of athletes who play a lot of minutes, and their body eventually breaks down. Maybe you can call it a fluke injury or just wear and tear. And I know all these leagues will be glad when they can get back to a more legitimate schedule. And I wouldn't be surprised to see if they can negotiate more off days during the course of a season, because player rest is paramount now. Now, I'm one that looked at how the game used to be played, and I never heard as many guys complain about rest, and I've never saw as many guys get hurt. But it's a different generation of athlete.
The on the NBA side, as we mentioned, the big story outside of the injuries has just been the fan interaction. And you bring back these arenas, more than 50% fans, and you're getting a lot of asshole fans in the stands. You've had issues. You've had the issues with the Celtics fans, and some of the comments that have been made about the fans in Boston, which have been made for years, about fans in Boston. You had an issue with Ja Morant's dad. You had the guy throwing the water bottle on Kyrie Irving. You had the guy dumping popcorn on Russell Westbrook. You've had a few issues, or a guy spit on Trae Young.
And then you had a guy come out of the stands last night in the Washington game.
All he did was slap the backboard. He didn't go near any players. All he wanted to do was see if he could slap the backboard, and he did. But then he got speared.
The problem though is it the fact that we become restless because we didn't have events to go to, and we're going back to that environment of being at a game and maybe having one too many, or I bet you can't, or I bet you will, or whatever. I just think it only takes one player to just knock the living shit out of one of these guys and make sure everybody knows. And here's the other problem I have.
Which Bradley Beal said he would do, by the way. He even said that you don't want these hands.
We don't know who these individuals are, and they should be held accountable to their jobs. I think they should get fired from their jobs.
If their names get out, I think but a lot of these guys,
they don't release them, and I think that's wrong.
But I think today, with the age of Twitter I think there's a very good chance that a lot of these guys, their names do get out.
Well, I want to see some heads roll, is what I'm saying. I want to see some heads roll because there's no reason for this. And I was in the gym the other day, and some idiot was telling me he was just throwing popcorn on him. And my thing is, you throw popcorn, I'm throwing hands. Okay, so let's see how that turns out.
If a guy would have thrown popcorn on LeBron, he would have dropped like he had just gotten shot.
LeBron would have had somebody else handle it.
Well, he would have flopped on the ground and rolled around for a while before
bring the trainer out. You're right.
Getting carried out of there like Paul Pierce.
Yeah, you're right.
I was I was up in Chicago last week for the Sox Cardinal games, and one game I was in right field, the other game I was in left field. So the game I was in right field was when that big fight broke out in the left field stands towards the end. And it very well could be a case of people finally being together in close quarters. And my God, you would think that humans have evolved enough to where we can learn to be around people again, but apparently not.
No, we got some work to do.
Yeah.
Got a lot of work to do.
We really do. So, God, it's just, that. By the way, with all that too, Kyrie Irving. I don't know if you saw this, but he stomps on the Celtics logo, and Jeff Goodman, he tweeted out that, what was it? One of the most disrespectful things he had ever seen happen on a basketball court. It's a logo. It's a painted character on the middle of a court.
I mean, we've seen guys. You remember T.O. did it in Dallas. I mean, it probably doesn't bother me as much as it bothers a local guy. I get it. But, Kyrie Irving is a different dude anyway. So why would you be surprised or disappointed, let alone mad by something he does or says?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Hey, before we get out of here, Claibs, quickly, Tyrone Woodley, St. Louis's own Tyrone Woodley, hasn't fared well recently in UFC MMA fights. I think he's lost his last 4. I don't think he's won since 2018, I believe is what I've seen. Since he's dropped the belt, he's struggled quite a bit. He is going to be the next one up in one of these boxing celebrity matches, what have you, against one of the Paul brothers. This one against Jake Paul. He is going to step into a boxing ring against Jake Paul coming up. Do you have any interest in it? I mean, what one of them is it Logan Paul, I think, is the one that's fighting Floyd Mayweather coming up next? To me, they're still just the same person. I don't know the difference between them, but they're both now getting into the celebrity boxing thing where they're making millions of dollars. So good for them for making the money. But now you're getting a MMA fighter in Tyrone Woodley who's going to be stepping in against Jake Paul. Well,
I hope he stays healthy. Tyrone Woodley, he's been a great representative of his sport, local guy. But I don't have any interest in it. This is what they do. It's kind of like glorified championship wrestling of the 70s. Where guys, guys really sold the show. They sold the event. And in this situation, all the huffing and puffing, nobody really cares. I mean, it's like, oh, you hear? Well, these guys, this is what they do. They're entertainers. They're trying to make money. I understand it. It just won't be any of mine, but there'll be somebody that will take my spot contribution wise.
One of the goal is to have one of the two guys just become hated enough to where you want to buy the ticket to watch that person get knocked out.
No, you're right. You're right.
That's what it is. I mean, it's pro wrestling. One guy has to be the heel and go out there, and you're going to have to hit him in the jaw. Hey, Claibs, what do you have coming up this week?
Well, we're going to visit with Bob Nightingale a little later in the week, talk some more hockey with Kevin Weeks. And probably, I'm really hoping that Memphis can stretch this thing out because I'm really excited about what they've got going there. And maybe we'll talk some NBA with one of our good friends in Memphis, either Rob Fisher or Brevin Knight.
Nice. Very nice. I'm headed to Denver on Thursday. I got a race out in Boulder, Colorado.
How long is this race?
Weekend. It's a half marathon, 13.1 miles for this one, but at the elevation. I've never been to Colorado. Never been to Denver.
Part of the world. Beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, I'm going to the Rockies A's game on Friday, so it'll be my first trip ever to Coors Field.
Well, you're going to see a really good ball club in the Oakland A's.
All right, you know what? I'm hoping that they have a good team because the Rockies are not good.
And I feel for Bud Black. Story's now hurt. He always seems to be hurt. And they get rid of Arenado. They don't have enough pitching. They've got some good young players. I like their left fielder. He's a pretty good player. Center field is pretty solid. And the third baseman, Arenado's cousin, is a good player. But they're all young and they just don't have enough pitching to make themselves competitive.
Yeah, so I'll take any recommendations on places I need to go visit out there while I'm there this weekend, and we'll try to have a Denver themed Weekend Joe coming for you this weekend as well. So we'll have all of that coming up, plus daily cards each and every day. Rammer and I will be recording that soon and have it up within the next hour or so. So we'll talk about that coming up. Which, by the way, Claibs, predictions for me. I already tweeted one out. I think I haven't tweeted it out yet, but I did tweet out the other day that the Cardinals have a stretch coming up at the end of June, early July, where they have the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Pirates, and the Tigers all in a row. 4 series in a row. 13-game winning streak needs to happen. Win all 13. Just don't give away a game like they did on Sunday against the Diamondbacks. Don't give that game away. Just go out there, play to win all 13 and put up a 13-game winning streak. Cardinals are going to win 20 games in the month of June.
So will Milwaukee. Have you seen their schedule?
I know that theirs is real bad.
They got some
coming
clean
up.
puffs too.
Yeah, but I said this about a few weeks ago. Cardinals need to win 20 games this month.
I would agree.
So I'll throw that out there. All right, Claibs, we'll be watching for your interviews up on claibsonline.com. We want to thank Ryan Kelly for jumping on with us again. You could still donate for the Keep Climbing Foundation. Donate now. He said that they're going to be taking stuff all the way through Friday of this week. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. This has been Weekend Joe, this has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe. That's right, different show. I'm going to do that again. You don't know how many times I've messed up when with daily cards, too. It's too many shows that I'm juggling around. Hey, powered by Ameren, Illinois. Driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.